Hey, this is TJ and welcome to GoFigureNews.com, and today we are looking at the Aggronautix bobbleheads. These are 4 of many different styles that they offer. So we first got excited about this particular company when we discovered that they were putting out a Wendy Williams from the Plasmatics figure. This was released in 2,000 copies, and then they also put out the 1989 version of Allin, very controversial in the music scene, and then comedian David Cross, who you might know as Tobias Funky. Lastly, the Vincent Price figure, which comes from their sub-series Rippers, which was put out with Rue Morgue magazine. And you might be familiar with Rue Morgue magazine because our former editor actually went on to write for them, and he's currently writing about figures for the Canadian glossy. So we're going to take a look at these and we'll do the reveal, but before we do, I'm going to show you the boxes. Here's a little bit more of what the Vincent Price box has on offer. The front is just a window box, but 3 sides have classic images of the debonair horror B-movie legend. And then we have David Cross, and you've got a couple of images here for David Cross. Here he is in a classic checked shirt. Here's the company name up here, Aggronautix. And then here he is with a ball cap. Now, I want you to take a look. Also, here is their logo. And this came from the Fun Fest. So, and also you should note that the Vincent Price figure came in 1,500. And I think this one is also, this is actually 1,000 copies, as it says here, from the 2012 exclusive edition. And then we're going on to Allin. Look at that crazy face. And Live Fast and Die. He was something else. And then Wendy is basically just a window box all around, so we'll just keep it there. Voila! Alright, so we're going to take a look at the figures side by side. I am particularly excited about, of course, Wendy Williams figure, and let me pull her out in the front. Okay, so what can be said about Wendy Williams? Basically, she was a punk rock, underrated, absolute brilliant superstar. She collaborated with the likes of Gene Simmons of Kiss, who produced her solo albums, and she worked with other members of Kiss on those albums. She also worked with Motorhead and made a record with Lemmy of Motorhead, and it was a cover of Stand By Your Man. You probably haven't heard that, but I would recommend to look that up. I'm sure it's on YouTube. So here's Wendy O. I think they've got the likeness quite good. She is definitely an iconic figure in the punk rock scene, particularly for women in punk rock, because there weren't enough, and she really stood out, of course, for her and her band, the Plasmatics, outlandish stage presence, and of course they blew up TVs and chainsawed in half guitars and entire banks of TV sets, cars, a bus in a video. I would recommend tapping on them on YouTube to check out their videos for songs like Master Plan, which was an awesome track. A pig is a pig, and that's that. And there were so many great ones from her solo records. Put Your Love in Me. There was, of course, Summer Night, which is actually the closest thing that I would say came to pop as far as they're concerned. The figure itself is, the sculpt is really great. I love the mohawk. It's fantastic. They caught the essence of 1982, which is what the figure is based on, really, really well. The mohawk itself is really thick, and you know, she went, you know, she had this sort of black short hair with this big huge blonde mohawk, and then she did a reverse of it, did it the opposite way. So we saw her in many different iterations over the years. The Plasmatics, of course, were around from about the late 70s, about 77 when the punk movement started, till about 83. But unfortunately, after 3 suicide attempts, she actually met her demise in 1998. She was a vegetarian and a very outspoken, smart lady. If you get a chance to look at some of her interviews, like on the Tom Snyder Show in particular, the paint on this is a little bit kind of cray, let's just say. There's missed spots up here around the head, and then on the top looks like there's fleshy paint, but of course that's to depict the rips. But it all gives you a punk rock spirit, all in all. So I can't take points away for that. In fact, I am just so heartened that this figure even exists. So,
this is for all you headbangers out there. You know who you are.
I met the lady in, I think it was in 82. I was about 15, 16 years old. And I went to this greasy, really outlandish punk club at the time, The Channel in Boston. And I brought my record, Metal Priestess, and she came out from the back and she signed it, and she put XOXO Wendy, and eventually that record melted in the sun because of a roommate's sort of misplacement of my record collection. That said, long story short, I will never forget her, and I hope you find this figure unforgettable. Next up, we have David Cross, stand-up comedian, and of course, again, starred in Arrested Development. One thing you might not know about the man behind the scenes, and thank you so much, Wikipedia. He was born and grew up Jewish. He's now an atheist. Probably can speak more from his soul than ever before. He was also one of the first investors in Kickstarter, so we have him to thank for many great artistic projects that have ensued. They've done a fantastic job with, for instance, like the microphone. They've pitted it so you can actually see where the silver and the black differentiate. In the shirt, especially on the back, you can see it. I'm going to turn him around. You have this checked plaid shirt, which is incised. So among the white stripes and the blue squares, you can see these little inscribed squares. So it gives it a real nice effect. Also, his hair, if you look the way that they modeled the hair to have this sort of, buzz cut effect, it's one of the better that I've seen. It's pretty simple. You just have to take a dryer brush and tap it. But they did an excellent job with the paint. They actually made the pants look worn in the back, and a few slices of white to make the Adidas pop. David Cross, stand-up comedian. I like the gaping kind of teethy, toothy mouth there. I think they caught his image. Next up, we have G.G. Allin. He's a little bit more of a complex character to talk about. You'll notice on the figures they all have these like printed out kind of almost clear lettering, and then his is kind of almost like hand painted. This is him in 1989 as depicted by the artists of Aggronautix. I think of all these figures, this is definitely by far the best in terms of paint. They've gone all out. There's way more colors than the others. There's way more attention to detail. If you look at the jacket, there's lots of burnishing, and the knees are painted out with some scrapes. He's got a little dollop of poo there, because everybody poops, right? And then on the bottom here, we don't know if that's a beer spill or what, but with him, you never know. Died just 4 years later in '93 of an overdose. He grew up like I did in New England. He grew up in New Hampshire. Comes from the sort of degenerate rock and roll school. And here he is with Jim Beam, XX. They depicted a bald spot, which I think is so great, or a balding spot. This is a profile. His performances were outlandish, probably along the lines of the Plasmatics, but taking it many, many steps further with the content of the songs. Definitely not for all audiences and not easy listening. And he's wearing a dog collar. Great job on this figure. And the hair is probably the standout in terms of the sculpt. Check that out. It's very thick and wavy, and it looks like it's flying into the background. It looks like it hasn't been washed for a while. G.G. Allin. And finally up, we have Vincent Price, of course, the master of macabre, the debonair, black and white, horror film, B-movie, superstar, legend. There's so much that could be said about the man. Way back in the day, I think it was in the late 80s, I worked for Harvard Art Museums in the Egyptian wing on a particular day, and he came in, and he was tall and slender, just as depicted in this figure here. I wasn't able to actually talk to him, but he nodded at me, and I nodded back. That's pretty much all I needed to get an essence of the man. Here he is, of course, with a Dancing with Death, which I think is pretty cool. Here's the bauble. So you get that kind of tight head on the Wendy Williams figure, because it's more like a headbanger, and it fits for the particular figure. On the Vincent Price figure, we have a good likeness. It's not an exact likeness, but it definitely captures, with the hairstyle and the eyes, it captures the spirit of the man, and also of the time, of movie stars from his era, from the 50s and 60s. He definitely had an appeal into the 80s, even, when he made a comeback via a Michael Jackson video. They put out a more realistic sort of style than several of the other bobblehead companies out there, so this will appeal to a certain collector who is looking for a little bit of artwork and sculpt and concept rather than sort of their own internal design factors. So thank you so much for checking out Go Figure News. Remember to subscribe, and we'll see you right here next time. Over and out.